There is not a time when God is silent in people's lives. And when God begins to speak, there are times when God speaks prophecies. Sometimes God speaks blessings. Sometimes God speaks rebuke. But there are times also in our lives where God visits us with curses. God visits us with discipline. And I would like us to consider a story of a king Pharoah in the land of Egypt. Pharoah had oppressed the children of Israel for a very long time. In the midst of the oppression, the Bible even acknowledges that God had hardened his heart. And the hardening of Pharaoh's heart, some people might argue, as the theologians usually do, that how could God harden someone's heart? Hardening someone's heart simply means that God withdraws his spirit from a man and leaves the man to work with evil. And your condition after God has stepped back cannot become better, but only to become worse and worse. It is important, critically important, to consider that the stubbornness of Pharaoh reached God. And when Moses comes, first of all, with a warning, and I would like us to consider the life of Pharaoh as your life also. That when you are persistent in a certain path of life, God at times will come, firstly, with a clear warning. And the warning was simple: let my people go. What we might even call a gentleman's agreement, a gentleman's discussion. Here is what God wants you to do. And you come and walk up to your door, no, 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 no. Anybody home? Anybody home? Yes. Here's a message that we have for you. Let my people go. In the midst of all this announcement, Pharaoh feels, not now, not ever. Actually, I need some slaves and etc. Does that sound familiar to all of us? That when God puts his finger on something in our lives that we need to change, first things that we do is that we want to find excuses as to why that cannot be done. And while we are busy arguing whether that cannot be done, the first thing that Moses did, which was not necessarily a miracle, but it was just an announcement that I am here sent by God. Moses takes his stick and throws it on the ground. And the miracle happens. The stick turns into a big venomous serpent of the desert. To which Pharaoh actually says, no, that one, I can also pull it off. Sounds familiar? When God begins to do certain things in your life, you begin to make other plans. Have you not noticed that when things are beginning not to move well, instead of fixing the real problem, we begin to find temporary solutions? So Pharaoh, like all of us do, also called his own men and said, come on guys, we have a big snake here. Let's see if you guys can also perform the miracle of throwing up a snake on the ground. To which, and to all our amazement, they were able actually to make their own snakes and throw them in the ground also. And to which Moses' big snake swallowed all of them. But still Pharaoh was not convinced, because he thought, oh well, if yours swallowed mine, what more could there be? I also performed the same miracle. It's only that you have a slight advantage. So we begin actually sometimes to begin to notice that even if there's a problem and we are aware that God is working, okay, you are doing a certain contract, the contract has been cancelled. You know you're living in disobedience. Instead of you fixing disobedience, you begin to look for other contracts, begin to look for different partners, begin to change companies, because in your mind, it can be done in another way. And Pharaoh, like all of us, usually the story of Pharaoh is not only about Pharaoh, it's the story that we all experience from day to day. When God begins to say certain things, instead of us dealing with the critical issues that need to be changed, we once so often begin to meddle around, finding other solutions to our problem. Then that's when God begins to become personal. Then God tells Moses, here is where we're going to start now. I want you to go to the river Nile. That's the difficult part. River Nile would represent in your life the very flow of life in Egypt depended on the river Nile. Agriculture, river Nile. Fish, river Nile. Water, river Nile. Transport, river Nile. Beauty, river Nile. The entire weather of the great city of Egypt depended on river Nile. And as it were, God tells Moses, go to the river Nile. Touch the river Nile with your stick and see what's going to happen. Moses touches the river Nile with a stick. Lo and behold, the entire river Nile turns into blood. Death, as it were. The fish that are in the sea, in the river, they die. Agriculture has to stop. Have you not noticed? This is a serious passage. Because when God does the first announcement and it is not listened to, the next phase of events is that God is going to put his finger on your river. Look around your constant supplies. Look around your river Niles that run through your life. Look around where your children are sustained from. Your wives are sustained from. Your families are sustained from. Your lifestyle is sustained from. I don't know what it is. Could be your business, could be your money, could be your whatever you have, your health, your beauty, your whatever you have, which everything else is dependent on this. And when God begins to do but a good thing, He will visit those rivers where we are constantly supplied from and turn those rivers into blood, killing everything that is in them. The issue is not God is not interested in killing things. God is looking for attention. God wants a discussion with you. And the killing of the fish, as it were, is killing of diet. Killing of the fish, killing of resources. Killing of resources, killing of wealth, money, killing of everything that sustains us. And when these things begin to die, we begin to cry. And fish, as it were, would represent, fish and water, by the way, would represent for us the spiritual elements that we have amongst us. When God begins to touch the physical things that give us sustenance, slowly our spiritual issues begin to become questionable. We begin to look for spiritual meanings. For fish themselves would represent the monies, the wealth that we have. And when God touches our wealth, then our spirituality begins to shake a little bit. Because we know that everything that we have is actually hinged on our spirituality. So those who believe in ancestors begin to run there and say, something is going wrong in my life. Those who believe in prayer begin some fasting. Those who believe in rituals begin some rituals. Because you know that whatever is happening in the physical world is a direct impact with the relationship what's happening in the spiritual world. When God touches the fish and He touches the water, then the life of Egypt as a whole begins to change. For the city of Egypt is now flowing with blood and death. Look around your life and see how you and God are treating each other. Look around the stuff and the cycles that are happening in your life in terms of success and failure. It could be that you are ignoring some certain warnings that God is constantly giving in your life. When you begin to deal with these issues, and God is able actually to restore even the fish that is in our waters. Is this not funny that many of us can remain with rivers, but those rivers can be full of dead fish? Many of us can still have rivers, but those rivers are full of blood. Instead of us getting water from those rivers, we're beginning to get death from those rivers. And when these rivers run dry, I would want to challenge you and say, only do not just ask God to give you fish. Ask God to restore your rivers. Because it's one thing to run around from this river now, go back to other rivers and start fishing from there. The issue has never been about you changing your rivers. You need to understand the cause, what caused the rivers to be turned into blood. And when you find out how to change and restore those rivers, you still find your fish are waiting for you in those rivers. For fish are always found in fresh waters. And for that reason, the freshness of our spirit with God must be maintained. The stubbornness of Pharaoh, the hardness of Pharaoh's heart does not only influence him and impact him, it impacts him, his children, his wives, and the entire city. Your obedience does not only impact you, impacts you, your children, your community, and your church and your entire city. Therefore, the obedience of one man can bless many. The disobedience of one person can actually cost many. Have you not read about Jonah and the rest of them? His disobedience costed the city, costed Nineveh, costed the Tarshish, costed the ships, costed goods to be thrown overboard because of a man who was disobedient. I want to challenge you as you run through the rest of your week. Do not only ask for fish, but actually ask God to cleanse your river. Ask for the fishing rights. Get your rivers in place. Clean waters of your spirit so that there's a nice flow between the throne of grace and the rivers that supply your constant blessings. May the Lord bless you as you watch over these rivers.